Hello and welcome to NJ Thrive Small Business Webinars. Today is Thursday, October 3rd. You are attending one of our weekly webinars, Create to Help New Jersey Small Business Owners Start, Grow, and Thrive. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you for being here. We appreciate your support, whether you're new to our webinars or whether you've been attending our webinars. We always appreciate your support. Keep attending them. We hope you find our information that we're sharing very, very helpful and valuable. Feel free to always let us know what we can do better, how we can improve. Your feedback is, of course, valuable to us. My name is Uzma. I'm a consultant here at NJSBDC. NJSBDC stands for New Jersey Small Business Development Center. We are a statewide program powered by the SBA, Small Business Administration, and partners to help small businesses in New Jersey with 3 things. Those things are no-cost small business consulting, training and events starting at $0, just like this one that you're attending, and exclusive small business resources. Now, the SBDC program is a nationwide program, so you'll find the small business development centers throughout the United States. The NJSBDC is a statewide program, and you'll see on the map that we have small little logos across some of the counties, and because those logos indicate that we have offices. So we have 11 offices, including a satellite office and a headquarters, our state office. If you are ever interested in learning more about where our offices are located, what kind of services that we provide, please go to njsbdc.com, just the name that you see here, and you'll find out more. Agenda. As always, we have a couple of headlines that we have to go through, then the presentation from our speaker, which you're here for, and a Q&A session. These are the small business headlines of the week. I will go through them very, very quickly. The links will be shared in the chat. These are just some of the things that are happening in the small business community that our small business owners should know about. So the first is a press release from the SBA, Small Business Administration. All the links that we share, all the organizations that we share from, we encourage our small business owners to keep those organizations in their loop as well as the resources. So this headline says Biden-Harris administration finalizes rule to lower costs for small businesses after interest rate cuts generate automatic savings. Excuse me. For hundreds of thousands of SBA borrowers, 504 program changes will lower costs further for small businesses. So if you were ever interested in the 504 loan program, if you have a loan from this program, then this is definitely of interest to you. There are details, there are rules, requirements, regulations. Definitely give this press release a read and share it forward. Next is also a press release from SBA, U.S. Small Business Administration, to host 11th Annual National Veterans Small Business Week from November 11th to 15th. In November, we celebrate the National Veterans Small Business Week. We also celebrate Veterans Day. So this will be in person as well as virtual across the nation. It is a week-long celebration. If you are a veteran, if you belong to the family of a veteran, if you have been in service, if you're a veteran small business owner, this is definitely something that you should participate in. The events, the providings, the offerings, whatever it is, definitely take part in this. And this did begin in 2013. So all the events from the SBA can be found at this link here, and there are other details as well. NJBIA, New Jersey Business and Industry Association, nominations open for 2025 National Small Business Week Awards in 2025. So this is just, they're doing something for next year. The nominations are opening. So next year in May, when the National Small Business Week takes place, everything is all set. All right, so nominations are open from all 50 states. Those winners will vie for the coveted National Small Business Person of the Year title. To be considered for this Person of the Year award, you must nominate yourselves or another small business by December 5, 4 p.m. So if you have a friend, a family member, or someone who you think who is an excellent small business owner, they've done very well for the community, for themselves, definitely feel free to nominate yourself or them if you know them. All right, and last, NJEDA receives notice of $50 million award for federal grant to advance offshore wind development in New Jersey. This is from NJEDA, New Jersey Economic Development Authority. Keep them in your loop of resources as well. Received a notice, so the organization NJEDA itself received a notice of the $50 million award through the DOE's Transmission Siting and Economic Development Grant Program. All right, offshore wind presents us with not only a pathway to a clean energy future, but an opportunity to generate impactful economic growth and family sustaining jobs. And there are more details here. It outlines the program, how it will be utilized, etc. All right, so those are all the links that we have to share with you. It is being shared in the chat, so you can save the chat itself, or you can open those links in a window on your computer. All right, things to keep in mind. Type questions in the Q&A box, not the chat box. If you have something different that we're doing for this webinar is that we're taking questions as the presenter goes through their presentation. And there will be some questions dedicated for the Q&A session, but make sure that you're putting them in the Q&A box, not the chat box. If you'd like to receive the slides from our presenter today, please complete a brief survey. And this webinar is being recorded. It will be available in 1 to 2 business days on our YouTube channel. The link for where it will be available will be shared in the chat as well. All right, so our speaker today is Tiffany Slowinski, who is an executive advisor at Culture Index. This webinar is maximizing team performance, proven strategies using personality insights. I myself am very interested in this topic today. We haven't done a topic like this before, so definitely something very, very exciting. If you're excited, if you want to learn more, what you're looking forward to, feel free to share in the chat on what exactly you're looking forward to. And Tiffany, I will stop sharing. The stage is yours. Thank you for being here.
If you could let me know if my slides are up on the screen, please.
Not yet. So nothing is being shared right now.
Okay. So I've got to get the share screen. Is it up now?
Yep, just need to go into the full view.
Yes.
There we are.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to everyone today. I'm an executive advisor with the Culture Index, which is a survey that measures 7 work-related traits. And with that, I help businesses to put the right people in the right seats. Several of you took the survey prior to today. Thank you. If you haven't had a chance to take it yet, if you scan the QR code on the screen right now from your phone, it'll take you 5 minutes to do. You could do it even while I'm presenting, so you get that done. I think it will make this more interesting and interactive for you. I also had put the link in the chat, so it's there. So if you want to click on that link, but that or the QR code. So I really encourage you to please, if you have not taken the survey yet, please scan that QR code or go to the link in the chat. It'll take you just a few minutes. You could do it while I'm speaking. I would love an interactive presentation today. So any questions you have as they come up, you can put them in the Q&A. Uzma will stop me. She'll let me know you've got questions. I don't want to just get ahead of myself and I'm talking about things and everybody's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So stop me at any point. Happy to answer questions. I want this presentation to be of value to you. So everyone knows, like everyone on this call, I'm actually a small business owner myself. Back in 2019, a little over about 5.5 years ago, me and my husband started a franchise. So we're franchise owners, and that was a city lifestyle magazine that goes out in our community. Since then, we've gone on to open up 2 more magazines. So we have one that's located in Bridgewater, one that goes out in Basking Ridge, and our newest one goes out in Upper Saddle River. And with that experience, we kind of faced the same challenges that other small business owners face which is that as we were scaling, we didn't really know how to bring on staff appropriately. So for the longest time, I had that I'll just do it myself mindset. I didn't know how to hire people, where to find them, who was going to be good at things. I had a little bit of that small business owner complex, which was nobody could do it as well as I could do it. And so I continued to work myself to the bone and stay up very late nights and get up very early in the morning and just do things myself. And the problem was that over time, the truth was I wasn't really all that skilled at doing everything myself. And then I needed to let go a bit. So our franchisor, City Lifestyle, had started working with Culture Index, which is that survey I'm asking you all to take. Again, reminder, go right to that QR code on the screen right now and you can take it. And we started working with Culture Index, and through that discovered that it really wasn't all that hard to find people if we knew what we were looking for. And so we were able to figure out who would be a good admin for us and who would make a good editor for us and who would be really good at going out and cold calling and knocking on doors and helping us get appointments. And we now have this system, these data points that would help us do it. And it made all the difference in the world in us being able to scale. And I saw such value in it that I now am a licensee of Culture Index myself. So my business is Team Spark Advisors, but what I license is the Culture Index. And that's what I'm going to kind of speak to today. So the point of today's presentation is to talk about three things. One, how we can use data in the hiring process. The second piece is now using that data, how can we empower our teams, so the people we have working with us? Because ultimately, when we do have good people, we want to be able to retain them. So we want to use this data in hiring, then working with them, so empowering them so that we can ultimately retain them and lower our turnover. There is nothing more exhausting than thinking you've found that perfect hire, and now a few months later, they're quitting, and you're like, as a small business owner, it's taking so much of your energy and your resources to now have to find somebody new to come in. So work-related traits, our personalities, that's what this is all about, data points. We are formed in childhood. It's nature and nurture, but it happens when we're young. We become who we are. And so I'll give you an example. If you have a smiley baby, that is a bit of nature. The child came out a little smilier than others. But what happens then when a baby smiles? What do you naturally do back to that adorable face? You smile back at them. And what does that reinforce for that child? When I smile, I get attention. People smile at me. And so that baby that already had that little bit more social nature to begin with is now getting reinforced with positive social experiences from others, which makes them do what then? Smile even more. And so it kind of becomes that what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? It becomes a reinforcing pattern. The opposite happens as well for anybody who's ever had a colicky baby, maybe who cries a lot and, maybe it's a lot of stress in the early years. They're kind of meeting the opposite. Sometimes when they see other humans, they're not always happy to see them. It's a little bit stressful, right? And so again, that can start to form their personality right there in those early years. So this is a picture of me on screen as a little girl. I was about 2.5 in this picture, and we had just moved to a new town and just built a house. And my mom decides she's going to enroll me in preschool. And so the first day of school, she walks me down the block and we go, there's a church, and this preschool's in the basement of the church. And it's a small school. It's just the teacher and a class of kids and like a parent volunteer in there. So she drops me off. Bye, Tiffany. Have a great first day of school. She goes home 2.5 hours later, walks back to preschool, and the teacher's waiting for her. And she says, Mrs. LaBarbera, I'm going to ask you to please make weekly payments for school instead of monthly. And my mom goes, okay, but why do I have to pay every week? It's kind of easier for me to just cut a check in the beginning of the month. And the teacher says, well, Mrs. LaBarbera, I'm not so sure that Tiffany is going to work out here. So I'd rather go on a week-to-week basis. And my mom is kind of horrified. Her daughter just started school that day. And she's like, what do you mean not work out here? And my teacher says, well, Mrs. LaBarbera, Tiffany has a very strong personality and she's kind of going to go one of two ways. She is either going to be president of the United States one day, or she's going to wind up in prison. Well, that was not what the mother of a 2.5-year-old wanted to hear. So my mom went home and she cried, was not very happy about this, but whatever. She brought me back to school later that week, made her weekly payments for a few weeks before the teacher finally said, okay, you can start paying monthly. So I will, fast forward to the end of the story, which is I did ultimately graduate from preschool. So I was not a preschool dropout. They learned how to work with me. I have never run for president and I have not been to prison yet, but my strong-willed personality, my way or the highway, do or die, was definitely already apparent at 2.5 years old. And my teacher was right. You either had to learn how to put that in the positive force of someone who could do great things in this world, or I was going to go down a dark path. And I think I wound up going the positive route, but it was a little shaky there in the early years. And so why do I talk about that? Well, in relation to hiring, who you're bringing in to your business, a lot of times we look at these three things. I call it the hiring triangle. And where we tend to put the emphasis on is on aptitude, motivation, and then expertise. So aptitude is where we typically put the least amount of emphasis. And that's on those innate traits. That's on me as a 2.5-year-old girl. Who am I? We do look at it, but it tends to be the smaller piece. Then we look at motivation. Is somebody motivated for this role? You can have the world's best traits to be a nurse, but if you pass out at the sight of blood, there will be no motivation there. So you're not going to have any passion. You're not going to have any interest in doing this. And then where we tend to put the biggest piece of emphasis is on expertise. Has somebody done this role before? Their education, their background. But the problem with focusing on that is this quote that I recently heard, and I loved it. A lot of people in business say they have 20 years experience, when in fact, all they have is 1 year's experience repeated 20 times. So just because somebody did something for a long period of time or went to school for something or worked in that industry doesn't mean they're actually any good at it or equipped to do it. There might be a reason they're looking for a new job. One of the businesses I'm working with requires that somebody be very detail oriented. They are in a science field, and in that world, precision means a lot. And they have a person there who is very low detail. That's not their strength. And they were coming up on their 1-year review, and the owner asked me, well, Tiffany, what should I put in the performance review plan so that he can become more detailed? And I said, well, there's nothing you're going to do that's going to make him more detailed just because you put in a performance review plan. I said, you could put processes in place that help him behave more detailed. I said, but he is who he is. And he goes, I know, but when I interviewed him, he already worked for 18 years at one of our, competitors. And he told me in the interview he was detailed. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure he told you that because it's a science lab. He's going to tell you that. And I'm sure he has 18 years experience. But if he hasn't figured out how to be more precise in the last 18 years, the odds of him doing it now are pretty slim. And so instead of so much focus on these years of experience and expertise, I say we flip that triangle. So the smallest piece should be that, yes, it does matter. I'm not saying you throw experience out the window. It does matter. But that bigger piece of it is actually aptitude. Does somebody have the natural traits necessary? Do they possess them to be good for the role? So why use data? I'll go to a simple example. Anybody who's been single in the past probably 10 years has been on dating apps. So Tinder, or Bumble, Plenty of Fish, whatever they are. I've been with my husband for 22 years, so it was before the days of dating apps. But all of my single friends have definitely been on them. And they talk about these experiences of, wow, this guy looks perfect. He's good looking, tall, great job, loves his mom, long walks on the beach. This is going to be perfect. And then they swipe right? Okay, excited, let's talk. And they show up for that first date and they realize it's not exactly who they were expecting. Some of those photos were maybe a little outdated, deceptive, I don't know, some filters on there. They're currently, between jobs. They are not quite as they presented. And hey, I get it. We're all going to put our best foot forward on a dating app. But the same thing actually happens when it comes to job interviews. That person who shows up for the interview is not always who you're going to see 3 months from now. And why is that? They want to put their best foot forward. And now with AI, it's easier than ever to take your resume and embellish it a little bit or make it really fit what that job description is. I tried it myself. I literally took a job description and I took my existing resume and I went into ChatGPT and I said, make my resume more applicable for this role. And boom, 3 seconds later, I had a new resume that fit the role. And again, I don't say it's wrong. People are going to do that. They're trying to put their best foot forward. But it makes it really hard to know if a resume is embellished or not. And then the person comes in for an interview, and social people will be hired 3 times more often than low socials because they interview better. They know how to answer the questions, whether or not they're more qualified. So that's where the idea of data comes in. How can we even that playing field? So traits that I'm looking for. So if you take the survey and get your results back, what are we looking for? There's different types of people, and depending on the role, different people will suit it. I like to say there's no wrong people in this world. There's just right people for right seats. You could be tremendously talented and very appropriate for one role and really not fit very well into another role at all. And so what are we measuring when we're looking at these work-related traits? First, I'm looking at level of autonomy. And this is a scale. This is not just, I'm autonomous or I'm not at all. There's a scale to this and there's levels. And depending on what the role is, how much autonomy you want somebody to have will vary. And so you look at somebody with a little lower autonomy. These are more our team players. We need some team players, right? We need people to show up and we're like, all right, coach, what do you need? I'm happy to serve. They're more harmonious, less a little more conflict avoidant. They can be more diplomatic. They want to avoid risky situations, and they actually like getting some level of direction. So these are people, when you see somebody's a little bit lower autonomy, as a boss, as a small business owner, these are people that are actually asking you to give more direction. Can you be a little more hands-on? Can you help me feel safe in this environment? And then I'm happy to do whatever you need, but I'm going to need you to ask me first. On the flip side, we have people who are very high autonomy. And those same people will go, I got it. You don't need to breathe down my neck. They will find that very annoying. They're a little more assertive, visionary, proactive. These are your independent workers. All right, tell me what's expected. I'll get back to you when I'm done. And they can, though, at times be a bit competitive. And so ways to motivate them or some sense of competition, of winning. But these people at times can also cause some tension, right? They like to win. They can be a little bit controlling. Then we look at this social ability. People who are a little lower on social. These could be some of our best employees in certain ways because they're a little more strategic. They're a little more skeptical. They don't take everything at face value. This does not mean antisocial. This does not mean they're crying in a corner, but they don't get their energy from others. And so if understanding that you have people on your team that are low social, maybe these people don't want to go to the company happy hour or don't really want to be involved in certain things. And by you pushing that, that's not actually helping them. I have a business I'm working with, and she is an accountant, and she left her last firm because she couldn't take it anymore, the amount of social they required of her. They kept saying, well, you don't talk to anybody, and why are you always alone? And so she literally put on her calendar like different times in her day that she would stop, get up, and literally walk around the office asking people how their day was. But that was distracting to her. And it wasn't really making her work as an accountant any better. Flip side, though, we have our high socials. These are people who are energized by others. They're a little more naturally persuasive. They connect. They can be a little more intuitive. They're kind of feelers. They notice things that are going on in a situation. And these people can thrive in a group setting. Let's sit down at the table. Let's talk about our ideas. These people, if left alone too long or work from home too long or have nobody check in on them too long, that can lead to discontent and lack of productivity for them. The next trait we look at is pace/patience. So I fall into this category. I'm a little, by a little, I mean a lot, low patience, otherwise known as impatient. These people have shorter attention spans. They also like a variety to their work. They're multitaskers. They can be fast-paced. Some of these people, they can even walk fast, talk fast. I've been told throughout my life to slow down when I speak. So even right now, I'm trying to modify that. I'm trying to speak slower. But for me, it's painful because I want to just go, and then none of you would be able to understand anything I'm saying. But that's me naturally. I'm talking a mile a minute. These people like to juggle a lot. I was recently doing a workshop for a company I'm working with, and I had the executive team in there. And at the end of the workshop, as I'm in the parking lot, ready to leave, I'm about to get in my car, and this woman comes running out, and she goes, Tiffany? And I said, oh, hi. And she goes, I've been waiting. I've been wanting to talk to you all day. She goes, I wasn't allowed to be in that meeting. I really wanted to be in there, but they told me I had to go work on whatever upcoming event instead, and that there wasn't time for me to be in there. She's like, could you go over my profile with me? I said, sure. So I pull it up on my phone, and lo and behold, she was a super low patience person. She likes variety. And so she was getting bored of being kind of told to just go focus on what you're supposed to be doing. And it was exciting to her, the idea of being able to be part of a team and come to a presentation for the day. She wanted to get out of that office. She was also a high social. She couldn't wait to come talk to me. But knowing that about her, I would have said, to go back in time, you should have let her in, because her being energized by doing something new was going to be more valuable than forcing her to stay kind of in her box. Now, on our flip side, we've got people who are higher patience. They're a little more methodical. They like to take their time. They like to work on one thing. I'm done with that. Check. Next. Check. They don't like tons of surprises. They don't like to come into work and suddenly be told, emergency, we've got to work on this instead. That throws them off. They're more of a strong focus, work on one thing at a time. Now, detail/conformity. Those of us who are lower on detail, we might require some assistance with follow through. We don't dot the I's and cross the T's. More of natural delegators. Even you as small business owners, some of you might be low detail and you're like, I cannot wait to grow to the point that I could just give away some of this work that I don't feel like working on. And frankly, you're probably not that good at it. But our low detail people also tend to be our creatives. They don't dwell on mistakes. They're not worry warts. All right, I'll fix it next time. They are a little less afraid of criticism and they live in the moment more. Versus our high detail people, they're a little more self-disciplined, can be critical. They don't forgive errors easily. And so if you're a high detailed business owner, you might have a hard time with delegation. You have a hard time giving things away unless it's going to be done perfectly. And this can also, perfection can be the enemy of progress. If you're very detailed and you have a hard time giving things away, kind of going back to my earlier story, when I was having a hard time with hiring because I didn't think anybody else could do it as well as I could. That can make it hard to grow. People are high detailed. They want more rules, regulations. This is how we do it. But they are also the people who will see the mistakes and make sure they get fixed. And they will see that small stuff that can matter sometimes. The next thing I measure is logic. And this is a range, right? Are you a more on the lower side, emotionally driven person? These people are feelers. They're sensors. They can be empaths. They can also be so passionate. These sometimes could be our best public speakers, and they read a room and they get that energy. And then we'll go all the way to the high side, somebody who's super logical, and their decisions are based off of facts, data, information. They don't stray from that, which can be amazing, but also have its downside of they don't always read people, or even if they care, they don't show it, so they can come across cold. And then where most people will fall is somewhere in between those extremes. And I say those are people who can think both their heads and their hearts. I have a business I'm working with 2 owners, and one is a lower logic. He's like a 1 on the scale. The other is a 10 on the scale. And it's like they're speaking 2 different languages. The one is so passionate. He cares. And he makes sure everybody knows he cares. And his problem with the 10 logic partner, he will say to me, I don't think he cares. He doesn't even get upset when mistakes get made. Whereas the 10 logic partner goes, I care. He always accuses me of not caring. I just don't see a need to get hopped up about it. I don't see the value in me yelling and screaming and getting mad at anybody. That's not going to solve this problem. And so they both care. They just show it very differently. And by understanding who the other is, they can work better together. The next thing I look at is ingenuity. Are you more of a traditional thinker, structured, straightforward? We don't need to recreate the wheel here. If this is working, let's go for it. We maybe improve it, but we're not over here like our high ingenuity people. These are our inventors. Think of like an Elon Musk or a Steve Jobs. They are the definition of thinking outside the box. And these are people who could come up with great new ideas for a company, but sometimes they got so many ideas, it can be hard to get them kind of back to reality. And so there's a time and place where both types of thinking can be extremely valuable. I worked with a man who was a very high ingenuity, and he felt stifled a lot of times because his position didn't permit the ability to work on his ideas. And so he'd be on the side working on little projects, and I allowed it, and then would give him some time to be like, okay, let's work on this or let's do that, because that's where he got fulfillment. If he had to just stay in a box and do the same thing constantly, that was really a waste of his talent. At the same time, we weren't in a position to just live over here in inventor land every day. There was work to be done, and we couldn't always be going for the most innovative way, but there's budgetary constraints. So it's kind of that push and pull of where you find that best dynamic for even where you are at that moment in your company. And then I also look at energy units. How much mental stamina does somebody have? Are they easily able to modify themselves, or is that exhausting to them? I'm a low detail person, and so can I do detailed work? Absolutely. I own magazines. I have to do editing. And I'll sit down once a month and have to read through the fine print. I got to make sure there's no typos, no mistakes. And yet, despite being very talented at it, I have a degree in journalism. I'm very good at it. Every month when I have to sit down and do my editing, I put it off. I get frustrated. I get annoyed. I don't want to do it. And then I do it and I do a great job at it, but it depletes my energy units because it's high detailed work that I don't want to do. So how does this all come into play? And for any of you who take the survey, I'll be happy to get your results over to you. But again, we're looking at this scale and how do we read this, right? So in this example on the screen here, each of those colored dots represents those different traits that I went over with you. And if you look at that red line up there on those survey traits, that's who you are innately, and that's the average of your first 4 traits. And then if we're to draw a bell curve over that, the further right a trait goes, the higher it is. The further left it goes, the lower it is. So it becomes more extreme. Whereas the closer to the red line, the more average a trait is, the more a person is able to easily modify it. And where does this really come into play now is we look at job behavior. So the second box is, how does somebody feel they need to behave at work in order to be successful? And is this similar to the top box or different? So in this example, this person goes from this high autonomy, self-starting person to suddenly low autonomy. They feel they need to be told what to do. They don't have a lot of decision-making power. This person is naturally a high social, that B trait is very high, goes down to low. They're not having an ability to interact, use their power of persuasion, work with others. And then that person is normally a low detail person and shooting it way up. So this person's living in the weeds. And if we look at the left there, those energy units, that EU score, on the top, it's a 38. On the bottom, the EU says 22. That's a drop of 16 energy units. This person is not using all the energy they have in a given day. They're leaving energy on the table because they're not being able to behave as their true self. This assigns disengagement and not using everything you have. So how do we apply this, right? First and foremost, as you're coming up with new positions, and again, most of you are smaller businesses, right? Like some of these positions, maybe nobody's ever done before, but it's important to really figure out the job role. And so this is an example of Shackleton's recruitment ad. He was an adventurer or explorer in the Antarctic and had this famous mission where they went and they hit an iceberg and got stuck for months, and he brought home everybody safely. They all survived, which is kind of unheard of. But this was his actual job post for the expedition. Men wanted for hazardous journey, low wages, bitter cold, long hours of complete darkness, honor and recognition in event of success. This is a pretty honest job post. I mean, odds are you might die, but if you don't, you're going to have some glory. Now, I don't always recommend you're this level of honest in a job post, but you do need to think about what you're hiring for. And again, in a small business, somebody might be wearing multiple hats. I have a company I'm working with, and they were looking for a director of business development / executive assistant. They said, okay, business development, so sales, and an executive assistant. Tell me more about this. What is this person primarily doing? Well, it's really, the owner saying, really my executive assistant. I need someone in the office to take care of things for me. But we go to trade shows, a handful of times a year, and I need somebody who's going to go to the trade shows with me, talk to prospective clients, collect their information, and then call them afterwards. I said, okay, so a couple of times a year you go to trade shows. That's not a business development role. That's really what you need is a great executive assistant who's going to be able to keep you organized, take care of everything you need in that office. And then you need someone capable of going to a trade show a handful of times a year, who at least is friendly enough to be able to be personable, talk to the crowd, collect some information, and follow up. If you hire somebody and the role says business development, they think they're coming in for sales. They're not going to be happy as an executive assistant. And really, those are two very different skill sets. I recommend you hire the best executive assistant you can. And for a few days a year, if she's got to or he's got to modify themselves to be good in that trade show role, they can do it. Or if they're really not that good at that, you could probably grab somebody else from the company to go and do that a couple of times a year, or even hire somebody for the day to go stand there. But you want to make sure you're really hiring for what's most important. And so that's where I can help you define who. And I go through a series of questions, really making you think about, okay, we've defined the role, but now who's going to be best in that role? What skills do they need to have? What traits? And so some of the questions are things like, on a scale from 1 to 10, how adaptable to multiple simultaneously challenges is there? How important is a practical fact-based thought pattern? How important is intellectual curiosity? How important is an outgoing, persuasive selling style? We hire outgoing, persuasive selling people all the time for roles that they don't have to sell anything to anyone and they don't communicate with anybody, right? So again, a scale of 1 to 10, how important? And so you might say, well, I want them to be able to do a little bit of that, but that's not really where they're going to be spending the majority of their time. That's maybe a 4 on importance, right? So again, developing this scale. And from that data, we can come up with a prototype. So let's just pretend in this example, I've come up with this prototype of who I'm looking for, a highly autonomous, self-starting, visionary, future-thinking, proactive person who's a little slower on social ability, strategic, will second-guess things at high level of detail, won't take things at face value, will want to check and verify, but is pretty quick moving, a little lower patience, can balance a lot of things at once, a driver, a pusher, fast mover. This is for this role who I'm looking for. And now, as people apply, we can match them. And so we'll have somebody new take this survey and see, okay, how did they compare? And so in this instance, these 2 people applied for this role. And the first person was an 89% match. Wow, those traits are pretty in line with what we're looking for. I'm probably going to want to take a closer look at the resume and see if I want to bring them in for an interview. Versus the second example here, this person's only a 23% match for the traits I'm looking for. That's almost the exact opposite of the person I'm looking for. I'm going to pass on this one. And the reason I talk about looking at this data before they come in is because once they come in and you interview them, you have interviewer's bias and you will decide you like them or you don't like them, regardless of what this information says. You will take the data and you will throw it in the garbage can and decide, but this time it's different, but this person has experience, this, and this, all the reasons. And you won't look at the data anymore. I have a company I'm working with, and just that almost happened. It was a highly charismatic owner, very outgoing, social, likes to have a good time. And she had received data, but she didn't look at it right away. She had interviewed this one person, decided that she wasn't the person for the job. And when I went back later and I looked through the surveys, I said, what about this one? Oh, I didn't like her. I said, yeah, you're not going to like her. She's your actual opposite. I'm like, she is a little prickly. She's a little rougher on the edges. I was like, but she is going to be able to fill every void you have. She is so detail oriented. She is so on top of her game. You will not have to babysit her. She will get everything done, but no, she's not going to want to have a glass of wine with you at happy hour. Accept that. So she gave her a second interview, wound up hiring her. And now in the 3 months since this woman's come on, they've like doubled their business. It has been a fantastic hire. And this is, a small business owner. So this was an investment for her to make. But she told me, if you had not told me that, and I did not have this data, I would not have hired her because I did not initially like her in the interview. So I'm going to ask everybody to grab a pen or pencil and paper. I'm going to do a quick little game with you. So I'm going to give you a second, grab a piece of paper and a pen or pencil. I'm going to do a little game with you. All right. So if you've all got that, I'm going to ask you for the next 30 seconds to write your full name as many times as you can. 3, 2, 1, start. All right, 3, 2, 1, stop. All right, I want you to put in the chat, how many times were you able to write your name? See, 6, 5, 5, 7, 4, 8, 12, 4, 4, 5. Okay. 12 is a fast writer. Or has a short name, I gotta say. People always argue about that. Is it not fair? They have a short name. 9. Okay. Now, 12 again. Yeah, short name and cursive. My cursive is terrible. So now, let's ask you to do this again. But this time, take your pen or pencil and switch hands. Put it into your non-dominant hand and write your name as many times as you can. 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, wow, you have 50 students as a business school class doing this now live. I bet some of those students could probably write pretty fast. They're still used to like taking notes and stuff. All right, 3, 2, 1, stop. Now I want you to tell me how many times you were able to write your name that time. Put it in the chat. 1, 7, 3, 5, 3, 5, 3, 6, 1, 3, 2, 2. What a cool glasses there. 2.5 to 5. I don't know. I don't know what that means. All right. So I don't really care how many times you were able to write your name. But why am I talking about this? When you write with your dominant hand, and for me, I'm a righty, I just write my name. I don't think anything about it. I just do it. I go. But when I switch that pen to my left hand, could I do it? Yes, you were all able to do it. There was not one person here who said they couldn't do it. Imagine you broke your arm and you had to sign documents. You'd pick up the pen with the opposite hand and you'd write your name. But quality goes down. Probably start to look like a kindergartner was right in your name. Productivity goes down. There's not one person who wrote just as many times with their left or their non-dominant as their dominant hand. It's stressful. You have to think about it. Instead of just writing, you have to sit there and consciously think about what you're doing. So what would happen over time? You broke your arm, and now let's even say you had your arm amputated. Over time, you would get better. Over the coming weeks, months, years, you would get better. You would certainly improve, but you'd never be all the way to what you were naturally. This is what happens when we put the wrong person in a role and they have to modify who they are. When you're in the role that's meant for you, you get to go to work and just be. You don't have to overly focus on it or stress on it. You just get to do what you do. When you go to a role and you're a low detail person and you're being asked to sit in spreadsheets all day, you can do it, but you're not performing it nearly the same way as someone who is naturally detailed and meant to do it. And so I get asked a lot of times, well, I have this person and they're not exactly what, ideal for the role, but like they still get things done. Well, yeah, I'm not expecting that people go to work and just like lay on the floor and do nothing. We all can modify ourselves. We all can write with the opposite hand. It's just not the same. And how much stress do you want to be under having to change that every day? So employee engagement comes to retention. A Gallup survey from last year says 36% of people are engaged in their work. 49% are passively engaged, meaning they'll show up, they'll do what's asked, they'll get it done. But then 15% are actively disengaged. These are our corporate terrorists. These are our people that are phoning it in. They are being asked to write with the wrong hand, and they're sick and tired of it. And so they are quiet quitting, doing the minimum, maybe actively looking for another job. And these people can be really detrimental to a business, particularly a small business when you don't have that many employees. And each person and their count on the payroll really matters. If you've got a small company and there's one or two not doing what they need to be doing, that can really hurt. So why do people quit? Number one reason people quit, their boss. That is the number one reason. In particular, the boss they directly report to. The number two reason people quit, and this might be more surprising, their colleagues. People quit people. Now you go further down the list. Yes, there's things like no room for advancement and salary and things like that. Sure. But the number one and number two reason people quit are their boss and their quality. People quit people. And it doesn't necessarily mean a bad boss. It just might not be the right boss for you, or you might not be communicating in that same language. So I'd imagine most of you here know the golden rule, particularly that room of students we have. They might have even been talking about it in school in recent years. Golden rule, which most of us follow, is treat others how you want to be treated. It's something we learned in elementary school. I've got 4 daughters. We talk about that. How would you feel if so-and-so did that to you? Don't do it to them. But what I like to talk about instead is the platinum rule. Treat others how they want to be treated. Not how you want to be treated, how they want to be treated. We all come from our own sense of self. And so in my instance, I'm a low detail, high autonomy, quick paced, do my own thing. I got it. Leave me alone, right? There's a reason I'm self-employed. I don't like reporting to anybody. But because of that, I can have a tendency as a boss to be a little hands-off because I assume, well, I wouldn't want to be micromanaged. I'm sure they don't want to be micromanaged. But in actuality, there are people who do want and need direction. So if I can manage them in a way that suits them, we're going to have better productivity. They're going to be happier. They're going to be less likely to leave. I had a guy that used to work for me, and we were and this is at a previous position I had, and we had a meeting. And at the end of the meeting, he had been very quiet that day, and he typically was. For whatever reason, it struck me that day. I think he had maybe said almost nothing in the entire meeting. And afterwards, I was like, hey, did you have anything you wanted to share in that meeting? You didn't like say anything. And he goes, you know, Tiffany, I've been thinking about that lately. I do have things I want to share. But the rest of you talk so much, I don't have a chance to. And I like to think about what I'm going to say first and plan for it. I don't like to talk just to talk. I want what I'm speaking about to have meaning. I like to think about it. So I thought about what he said, and he was right. We're a bunch of loudmouths in the room who, I'll just say the first thing that comes to my mind, and we spit fire. That worked for some of us, but for someone like him, it wasn't working. And so I was like, okay, let me think about this. And so I started like a day or two before meeting, just sending an agenda out to everybody who was going to be in attendance. And I would just say, hey, come prepared to discuss A and B. And this person started showing up at our meetings with charts and graphs that he put together because he had the time to think about what he wanted to say, do a little bit of research because he didn't want to say something unless he was sure it was right. And he become so prepared and became a very, very valuable member of that team. I just needed to give him time to think. Now, was it a big deal for me to shoot out this email? No, I didn't single him out. I sent it to everybody. But that small modification in my management style created a much more valuable member of our team. And had I never stopped and asked him that, and had I not then, at that point, I had his culture index survey, looked at it and said, this makes a lot of sense from what he's saying, right? I would never have changed that. And so now how do we empower these people? Again, looking at the traits. Someone who's a high autonomy person. These are people who want to set their own goals. So a lot of times when you're coming up with your goals for the quarter or your KPIs or however you run it, these are people who, if you let them make their own goals, they will probably come up with something more challenging than you would have even had the nerve to ask for, because they own it, because it was their idea. High autonomy, how do you win them over? Make it their idea. Then they've got buy-in. You tell them what to do, you lose them on the spot. Flip side, our lower autonomy people, providing clear guidelines. They want check-ins. These are people who actually want to meet with you. They want feedback from you. So making sure they feel supported in their work and that you're taking the time to meet with them and give them an appropriate amount of direction. Our high socials. These are the people who love being recognized. They like seeing their name in shining lights. These are people who like to be praised publicly. So the best thing you could do is in front of the rest of the team, let them know what a great job they did. And the absolute worst thing in the world you could do is to discipline them in front of others. They will be so embarrassed. So praise publicly. And if you do have to discipline, you discipline privately. I'm a high social. And like I said, me and my husband were franchise owners. And every month with our franchise, they have what they call like a monthly leaderboard. And I was always obsessed with this leaderboard. And I would see somebody else was like $50 ahead of me. And I was like, I gotta get another sale in. I gotta be higher on the leaderboard. And I would go to my husband, get another sale in. We gotta be higher on the leaderboard. And he'd go, I don't care about the leaderboard. He's like, what the heck is the difference to me if I'm one person up on the leaderboard? I'm like, well, because like everybody sees our name at the meeting and we'll look good. He's like, yeah, so what? He's a low social. It doesn't matter to him. And so things like leaderboards were not very incentivizing to him. He prefers personalized private recognition, no fluff. Be sincere. Give me exact instances of when I did a good job, and that's going to be more meaningful to him. Pace/patience, somebody with a high patience. They like stability and predictability at work. They like to know what to expect. They don't like being thrown off. So as much as possible, giving them the time, like I did with that example I said where I told them 2 days in advance what we're going to be talking about. They like that. These are people that if you in the middle of the day run in, we got in a fire, an emergency. Yes, that happens sometimes and they have to deal, but as much as possible, giving them a heads up helps. Whereas our low patience pace people, give them a variety of tasks. They're the ones who are like, oh, I'll work on this project, or I'll do this, or I'll do that. That keeps them engaged. They get energized by a little bit of variety. Our high detail conformity people, they like learning opportunities. I was just working with a business last week, and we were going through profiles, and the woman said, sometimes I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm fairly new to this industry. I wish there were more ways, for me to learn. And the owner right there on the spot said, any class you want to go to, consider it done. I'm happy to let you be properly trained. I didn't realize you felt like that. But absolutely, anything you bring to my attention, I promise you, 99% of the time, I'm going to say, go for it. So she feels more fueled if she has a little more knowledge. That makes her more confident. Our low detail conformity people, they want flexibility. They want to be able to do it their own way. So as much as possible, giving them room, right? Like you've got to have some confines and things you expect from them, but then encouraging them to let them just do it as the way they want to do it while still meeting those requirements. That's how you're going to get the most out of them. So Christian is a low social. I'm looking at this checkbox. He wants to know who else here is a low social. I love that because low socials are less likely to raise their hand and talk, but in a chat box, they probably feel good. Anybody else a low social in this room? It's got to be. Can't just be Christian. No, just Christian hanging out there by himself. Nobody else is low social. I find that hard to believe. Oh, Larissa is a low social. Marie. Yeah, my husband, a low social. He's a low social. I'm an extremely high social. I am more social than 99% of people who walk the earth, literally, according to the data. And so even us working together, we're business partners. We like set up early in. I do more than networking. I take care of certain things because that fuels me. I can go to a worker room and he can do it, and he does because he has to, but he is exhausted at the end of it, where I come home from an event and I'm like, okay, cool. I met so many people. I got all these business cards. So definitely way to play to those strengths. And so what I'll kind of leave you with here is the more right people you hire, the fewer people you need to do a great job. The more wrong people you hire, the more people you need to do a job. Right people, right seats. Christian, here's the survey link. I'm going to put this in the chat box here. Go on, take it. It'll take you literally 5, maybe 10 minutes. It's not long. That's kind of the beauty of it. It's short and sweet. So much so that at the end you might go, what is this even measuring? This is so short. But I love that it's short because it's easy to get done. Take the survey. Anybody who hasn't done it yet, the link is in the chat box. Take it. I'll tell you that I'm happy for anybody who was on this call to give you 15 minutes of my time, and I'll go through those results with you. I'll at least give you some insights into who you are as a business owner. And talk you through, hey, we're not all superhumans. And again, we wear a lot of hats as small business owners. What are areas you might want to look to bring in outside influence? Or what's the best way you can scale? And kind of talk through some of those conversations based on who you naturally are, because who's going to work best with me is different than who's going to work best with somebody else. Any questions from anybody?
That is exactly what was going to be my question, Tiffany. Any questions? So throughout the presentation, we haven't had any questions, which I just take that as a really good thing because everyone was just so engrossed in your presentation. But
or they were so confused they couldn't
I don't think so. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, please put them in the Q&A box. That should be right next to the chat box. One question from Ronald: can we get the slides? Yes, you can if you complete our survey. So the link for the NJSBDC survey has been shared in the chat. Please complete that survey. It's a quick Google form. We just need your feedback, what you liked, what you didn't like. anything you want to share, and then once you complete that, the link will be available to you. It won't be emailed to you. The link will be available on your screen once you hit submit. Feedback from Parker. This has been the most interactive webinar I've attended so far. I loved it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Parker. And this is actually like my least interactive webinar because I'm used to people being able to talk to me. So it's a little awkward, I'll be honest, up here, and I'm used to humans, kind of talking back as I go.
Yeah, no, completely understandable. One question from Andres, can you share the recording? It will be available on our YouTube channel in a couple of days, probably tomorrow, by Saturday, maybe. So just, you'll see, go to youtube.com. You can just type even NJSBDC. The link is being shared in the chat, but if you just go to YouTube, type in NJSBDC, you'll find our channel and you'll see it there.
Going back to my home page, the first page here, again with for the survey, if you want to scan that QR code, that's the easiest way to take it as well.
Perfect. All right, can you repost the link?
Here you go.
Parker says that platinum rule is going to be my new obsession.
It's a good one because we don't realize how much our own experiences shape how we treat others. A lot of times we're trying to be good people. We're not trying to be jerks, but we are treating other people as ourselves when that's not necessarily what they want.
All right, I don't see any questions coming in.
Christian, you want to know, should you pick what you are 90% of the time or include things what might express only maybe on a Saturday night? Think about who you generally are. I get that we all put a few drinks in us and change a little, but what the words you generally think describe you. We all kick back a little bit more on a Saturday night.
Yes. All right. Any other feedback? So we're hitting the 1:08 p.m. mark. Tiffany, I'm not sure if you have anything else to share, but we have shared the survey from you so far, the personality. We've shared the slides. If you complete the survey from us, you'll get the slides. The recording we've mentioned. All right, what else? I have just a couple of more slides to share.
The survey links are different from the beginning to the end. As long as I might have put a different survey link in there, they all go to me. So as long as if you take it through that link, it'll get to me.
Yeah, just so there is no confusion, the survey that Tiffany is sharing is the personality survey. The survey that NJSBC that we're sharing is the one for your feedback, and you'll receive the slides that Tiffany shared. All right, perfect. Let me just share my screen. Tiffany, thank you very much for doing this for us. It was a pleasure. Thank you for agreeing to this. We hope to have webinars like this again and again. I'll share my screen. I just want to quickly go to our homepage and show everybody where they can find out more information about us. This is the website that I was talking about earlier in my slides, njsbdc.com. This is where you go. Anything about counseling, events, resources, and data, blog posts, podcasts, Empower to Grow show, things like that. Whatever you want to find, please take a minute or two out of your day to go through our website, and you'll find.
Somebody's asking for the your survey link again.
Okay, we'll put that in the chat. Our webinar assistant will put that in the chat. But maybe if you just scroll up a little bit, you'll see that as well. Thank you, Tiffany. All right, one couple of things that I do want to share is this page. That's where our YouTube channel is available. So go to events tab, NJ Thrive Small Business Webinars, and you will be directed to our YouTube channel. And this is where all our webinars, this is where Tiffany's webinar will also appear. You might just have to scroll a little bit and you'll find it there. Next is our statewide events, same tab, events, go to statewide events. And this is where our entire regional, our statewide events, workshops, everything will be available. So whether in English or Spanish, whether it's free or there's a fee, whether it's online or it's in person, however many topics that you can think of, they will be available here and you can register. that is what I want to share from our website. This is an upcoming webinar on Thursday, October 10th, choosing the right business structure in New Jersey for long-term success with one of our startup consultants, Vanessa Schwartz. This is part 1 of the series of the 3-part series that we're going to be doing for building a strong foundation and building a business structure in New Jersey. All right, let me just quickly go through this, and we don't have any more questions or comments. So we've helped many small businesses grow in the past 46 years that we've been in existence. Small business consulting at no cost, training and events just like this one, and exclusive small business resources. Tiffany, once again, thank you so much for doing the presentation for us. We appreciate it. And our audience also found the presentation really helpful. So that's always a good thing. All right. Take care, everybody, and see you next Thursday. Thank you so much. Bye.